I've come to a little bit of a realization today. While I was sipping on my morning coffee, I thought to myself, you know, the term epic late game is sort of subjective, right? On land, that's usually when we see juggernauts per second, and titans galore, and vanguards, and razorbacks, and shivas, and all those other wonderful T3 giants of industry. But in the naval field, it really is T2. T2 is the end of the line, and so we really get to that epic late game with one tech transition. We don't have to go all the way through T2 and then all the way up to T3, which I think may be the reason why I tend to favor naval battles so much more on this channel. Anyways, if you're new here and you didn't know that, welcome to the Brightworks. Today we're taking a look at Deploria Fields. This is an entirely naval map with thin little pinpricks islands of land here. You could fit maybe a radar tower, maybe a wind turbine if you were really lucky. You'd have to really squeeze it in there, even on most of these, because they are fairly pointy as well. So yeah, you'd be hard pressed to get any sort of land-based economy out on these little islands here. So mostly naval, and there's not really a reason to go for land-based economy with 20 naval power. That's just slightly less efficient than fusion power, and so the naval economy is going to be more than sufficient to fund the escapades that these players get up to. Players like, for instance, spawning on the western side, representing the red team, a Cortex leader here. It's Grenwacht, or maybe it's like a German pronunciation on the W there, so it'd be like Grenwacht, something like that. You'll have to let me know down below. There's always somebody who knows the exact proper pronunciations, and it is not me. Representing the blue team, where are you? There you are, spawning all the way on the eastern side, across the map on the southern area of the map here. Dressed up in blue is our Armada commander representing the blue team. All is well in this world. It's Jonte 22001. We'll call you Jonte, or maybe it's just Jean or Jont. That actually is a German flag, so I'm not actually, the one fact about German I know is that the W is a V. So, again, let me know how this is supposed to be pronounced. I'll go with Jonte just because that's, I think if someone was wearing a name tag and they came up to me and shook my hand and it was spelled Jonte, I would say, nice to meet you, Jonte. They'd probably correct me on it, but that would be my first attempt, so that's what we're going to go with here today. Enjoy for the rest of the cast, as I probably butcher that name terribly. Now, interesting that the red and blue player are on opposite sides of the map. Usually what that means when that happens is, by the way, excellent aggression here. We have these gunboats going out, getting an excellent scout, if not maybe even a kill or two on a couple of constructors. That's always a lovely pick. This one will be shut down by the Dolphin, I do believe. This one, however, will get a nice little scout of the bases over here. Always lovely to have that intelligence right off the bat. Anyways, what I was talking about is when you have the red player and the blue player on opposite sides of the map. They're red and blue, by the way, because of their true skill value. This is a what I would call a medium to low level lobby. Right now, I think 60 is the highest team true skill value player, but that is a little bit of an outlier. So 40s-ish is right around the pro level. It's always ever changing, so I have to keep that number updated. Nice little aggression over here, shutting down a couple of these tidal generators. Always lovely to see. They explode a little bit, so you can convince them to chain react. It's just a little bit more difficult than, say, the wind turbines. Anyway, let me make this point about red and blue before I completely forget. When the red player and the blue player are on opposite sides of the map, typically you see the red player's lane cave and you see the blue player's lane cave, and then what you see is a total shift in a sort of like a rotation where both of these are caving, and whichever side can collapse first is the victor. Well, or the winner, or the loser. Essentially, the side that caves first is the one that will determine the fate of the rest of the match, so it's always interesting to see. One of my favorite engagements, at least, and I think you'll probably enjoy it too. Elsa's brought out here. That's quite nice. I have a newfound respect for those Elsa, and it's probably just because I've been playing a whole lot of Crying Suns, which is a phenomenal game, by the way. Definitely recommend checking that out. I got it for free a long time back on the Epic Games Store. There was also a new game on the Epic Games Store that was free this week called Homeworld Sands of Karak, which is, I believe that's Dune, right? Karak is Dune? Anyways. Submarine over here. Getting a little bit of damaging on this commander. Submarines are very powerful, especially against commanders. It only takes 10 hits to bring down a commander, or in other words, submarine torpedo does 10%-ish to a commander. So you can get a lot of work done with just a single submarine, as long as it doesn't get caught by a torpedo launcher. Again, just highlighting just how powerful those offshore torpedo launchers really are. A little bit of infighting about the metal extractors here. If you want them, you gotta grab them. Can't blame your teammate for getting those metal extractors first if you're just too slow on the draw there. Grenwalk, though, a team player willing to share those metal extractors. What a team player. Really love to see it. That's a Chad move right there. Very nicely done, Gren. Wonder what he's going to go for up here with the commander. Commanders fall off very quickly in the naval field just because of how powerful those submarines can be here. Yeah, a little bit of communication about who should get what metal extractor. But yeah, I really like that we're claiming these metal extractors fast. You really want to get on top of as many of them as possible, get as much metal flowing into your team as possible, because otherwise, yeah, you're going to be in a pretty huge disadvantage. Couple of Dolphins here getting a little courageous, trying to push forward into the base of a sabotage here, spelled with a whole lot of letters. Sabotage, the green player, going to be playing with his blue comrade, Jonte, down south here, but not pushed far forward enough at all. Sabotage definitely needs to get some units out on the board, definitely needs to get this constructor moving far forward, or the commander moving forward, one of the two, to claim all these metal extractors here. That's tons of metal that's not going back to him, that is going back to, for instance, No Scopes X, No Scopes X. What a real gamer tag you got there. Really takes me back to the old Xbox days, and you know, everyone was just raw dogging the name tags. There was no filter on what you'd put on there. You just find the most unhinged thing you could and slap an X or two on the front and back end of it and call it a day. Lovely to see. Really brings back some nostalgic feelings. Huge dolphin corral over here. It looks like we've got 7 dolphins here for Jonte, and they are harassing through the middle of the map. Love the inclusion of the submarine here. It's easy to forget that dolphins cannot attack underwater, so if you want to actually do any kind of economic damage on a map like this, you need the submarine in order to shut down those metal extractors. So that's a nice little inclusion there. A little bit costly in the middle, but well worth it for the value you get, especially in the damage you can do to a commander, by the way. Could shut down a single commander with a single submarine if you're really on top of it enough. You can see about 9% damage, I guess, but yeah, 10 or 11 shots. One of the fastest times to kill for any T1 unit, I do believe. Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. Rocketeers do about 4% damage. This little backline seeker over here. Smiles managing to sneak a seeker into the backline here. Smiles is a very high skill player, so I wonder if this is a different Smiles. The high skill player is just Smiles, nothing else. This Smiles is Smiles 94, so I guess Smiles, 1 through 93 were taken, and 94 was just the last one left. But that seeker is getting a phenomenal scout, so that's really good to see. Destroyer was brought out here to accompany these gunboats. Lovely to see, and very annoying for toxic farts to deal with here. Yeah, having to repair those rather than being able to expand out it just feels terrible. You never really want to be in that position. Now, the destroyer does not have vision. I would love to see the inclusion of a missile ship to give you a tremendous amount of vision included in this composition here, but I think eventually this destroyer will whittle down this here torpedo launcher with relative ease. Middle of the map is a massive engagement. We've already got some destroyers out on the field here. Corsairs for the Armada player going up against a bunch of dolphins. You need a screen of dolphins of your own, and then the destroyers in the backline to dish out that additional long-range damage. Now, this is not good. A little bit of a mis-posturing here of the units from Jonte, and it does mean that a lot of his dolphins, as well as some of his submarines, are very scuffed up here. Yeah, not very good at all. His attention is a little bit distracted because he is being pushed in on multiple fronts here. Top Secret does not have the army, well, the Navy, to continue fighting here, to fight here at all. There's no units for Top Secret. That's a bit unfortunate. Jonte being pulled all over the map. Don Reagan trying to get out there with some of his ships. He does have those missile ships, so that's quite nice. Missile ships can be very annoying for the same reason that missile trucks can be very annoying. You can poke and pester and prod and peel away those enemy defenses from a long range, and that's a really effective strategy to, if not do a tremendous amount of damage, at the very least get on somebody's nerves. It's real. You really piss somebody off enough in this game, and they're gonna start making bad decisions. They're gonna get really angry. They'll get upset, and they'll start moving their navy into positions where you can get a really good engagement against them. It sounds a little bit random, a little bit dumb, but it's a real thing. Again, it's that APM overflow, right? Your army starts to dwindle and your APM is still cranking out at the levels of an army that is massive. You're just going to be cranking out APM, and sometimes that can actually come back to haunt you when you're really overtaxed here. Silver Hornet navigating his navy way up north to try and collapse on top of Grenlock. This is actually a great engagement. Those Dolphins jump on top of this destroyer, these destroyers rather. There is 2 of them out now, 3 of them out now. But yeah, that will shut down basically all of the static defense here that Grenlock did have up and available. Now just 1 destroyer left. That is a massive wreckage field, so we desperately need to see that reclaimed, but the torpedo gunships are now raining down those torpedoes out of the air into the water and down into the depths where Grenlock's commander is roaming around here. Not enough energy to sustain a cloaking field, and so Grenlock is going to go down here to these torpedo gunships, I do believe. We'll love to see a res bot included, or res sub rather, included here to eat up that wreckage. Included all over in this field, but also from this commander that is about to perish. There he goes. The commander is down, and the gunship is in a bad way as well here, as these torpedo gunships are completely uncontested. No air player here for the red team, so that is going to be a aerial superiority, at least for the time being, for the blue team here. Now this is a nice little counterattack. Finding the weakness here, as Top Secret's base does not have any static does not have any unit defenses. He does have a couple of static defenses in the torpedo launchers here, but still, these Dolphins getting in here and doing a tremendous amount of damage. Shutting down the lab is quite nice. Going to be able to kill some of these constructors as well. Some of the build power, very, very disheartening. And this player who does actually have a phenomenal economy because of all these constructors he's got working on, well, building up these tidal generators and energy converters, all that stuff. Massive economy, no units. This is an excellent navy we've got here. We have these frigates guarding the destroyers here. This is a extremely high damage navy, not one that you can push into lightly. You have to take a very delicate trade with this. Probably the most efficient trade you're going to get is, yep, those torpedo gunships right there. Barring that, you could also go for some of those missile cruisers. Of course, those missile cruisers can do a decent job of kiting these units around, but that's not a very quick way to shut them down. So if they're just pushing for your base, yeah, you're not really going to be able to do all too much. Anti-air is going to be critical here for the red team going forward. Because they don't have an air player, they all need to include a little bit of anti-air into their compositions. Doesn't seem like a lot, but that actually costs a lot of metal here for the red team. So it's an excellent play by Milk Junkie here, who is the one who went for those seaplanes. Where was he? All the way up north here. Nicely done. Kind of sequestered away behind his teammates here, using the shield of the teammates, but doing a great job of using those units to shut down any aggression here. I do believe the southern side would have collapsed if not for the support here that Jonte received, as well as sabotage down south. Torpedo gunships, very, very dangerous. Okay, we do have some seaplanes out now. Looks like No Scopes did make a tech transition. He went for... I actually did make a transition. He just added on a seaplane lab that's very expensive, and especially metal taxing. Trying to pull all the... Well, actually, it's more energy taxing than metal taxing. But still, yeah, very, very difficult to justify that cost. But what else are you going to do when you're being harassed by those torpedo gunships, which are forced to flee at this point because Milk Junkie is going to have to go into fighter production if he wants to keep that aerial superiority over No Scopes here. Still mainly Dolphin armies, but you can see there's tons of metal out on the map here. 2.1 thousand metal with another 1,000 or so, give or take, laying on the seafloor right around Jonte, who's just eating it all up with the commander. Tons of metal up north here as well. You can see 1,000 in this little box over here. There was a ton over here, but it's all been eaten up already, which is very nice to see. Do we have anybody going into T2 already? That is the question. Yep, looks like Jonte did go for that T2 lab. Probably explaining the lack of units here, or the lessening of units. Not as massive a naval force, but this is a huge overstepping here. These frigates don't have any way to counter submarines, and also don't have any way to counter commanders, just, you know, standing around under the water there. So a relatively cheap T1 army does thwart them, and that drops a ton of metal into Jonte's hands, who he can now turn into a advanced construction submarine down here. Nicely done there. Sabotage in a little bit of trouble as these Dolphins continue to harass him. I'd love to see him repairing that torpedo launcher, although I don't know how effective that would have been. All said and done, though, these Dolphins didn't really get very much value. I mean, considering the fact that they traded themselves for a couple of other Dolphins, and all that metal is still under the control of the blue team, that was really not the engagement that I believe No Scopes was looking for here. Again, frigates versus dolphins is a tricky engagement. You have to engage at just the right distance that your frigates, there we go, we just hit it right there, and you can see the effectiveness turns up to 11 as these frigates start to just dismantle this entire army. You don't want to get into quote-unquote melee range here. You want to make sure that you stay at an appropriate distance, trying to kite that army, and your frigates are going to do just fine against it. Oh, fighters here do manage to jump on top of these gunships. Not a whole lot of anti-air because the blue team has been so comfortable with that anti-air, or with that aerial superiority, rather. Nice little engagement over here. Silver Hornet, more than enough units to float back this army for chill 1177 here, and so I do believe that will be a whole lot more metal going into Silver Hornet's hands. At this point, T2 is being handed out all over the place by Jante. I do see that in the chat. That's very nice. Getting those T2 out to your teammates is very important. I would always support my weakest side first, so he's sending it to Milk Junkie, which is nice because, of course, that's the air player here. Yeah, these fighters are shutting down air production for a while here. Oh, finish that constructor. That'd be really nice if we could take out that constructor there. I think they're going to get it. Yep, they will get the constructor. That's quite nice. Shuts down aerial production, at least for a little while here. Aerial production under the sea. Anyway. Yeah, Jante asking for a little bit of help from his team. He is trying to go up to T2, and that's an expensive transition, especially in the Navy, so he really has to take a delicate fight here. Sending in the submarines because this is a whole lot of frigates, but there's enough destroyers included in this mix that I don't think he's going to be able to really effectively take that trade. Dolphin's a little bit better at trading out effectively here, but they need to be kited around so that a lot of those potential plasma balls will run away and won't actually land on the units they're trying to target here. Yeah, submarine's doing a good job of softening up a lot of these units. They're trying to target down these destroyers here, but all said and done, I don't think they're going to be enough to clean this all up. Now, the torpedo gunships will definitely be enough here. Fighters trying to clean that up from no scopes, but there is anti-air included here, so I do believe that will be dealt with here. Sabotage once again getting ran past as some bombers actually come out to try and shut down his economy. Very nice bombing run there. Does manage to take out a lot of those tidal generators. And now this player is looking very thin in the energy department here. You can see he is starting to stall out. No metal to, or no energy rather, to power these energy converters, and that's really what your economy depends on when you're in the Navy. Lab does go down, and that's going to mean that Sabotage is very, very vulnerable, at least for the time being. Now his teammate up here is going to have out a Dreadnought sooner rather than later here as his commander reclaims a lot of these wreckages. Depth charges are very dangerous, got to be careful there. Absorbing the hit is this wreckage of the Riptide, but he's eating it up. He's eating his cover out from in front of him. So many fires all over the map to put out here. We have some Corsairs trying to push in here, but there is a collapsing set of units from two different players, two different blue team players, trying to shut all of this down, and I think eventually they will, but these Dolphins have already made it to the back line. They're going to start popping this economy like cherries out of a fine cocktail here. Yep, Dolphins pretty annoying to deal with in your backline. There's not a great answer. Gunships are pretty good though. They're one decent option here. Again, it's a cost per time sort of equation here, where the Dolphins are not tremendously dangerous unless you give them enough time, and the gunships don't kill them very quickly. So you're sort of paying for that with your time. Dreadnought is out here, but is it enough to stop this horde? I don't think so, as those Dolphins easily blast it down, and that is going to be the T2 lab of the blue team going down lickety-split. We're going to need to see this dealt with extremely quickly, otherwise the blue player is going to be out of this match for quite a while. Do we have any T2? Oh, Jante already calling the resign vote. We do have T2 up north here. That's quite nice. Looks like Yo Mama's already got a T2 lab up, but this engagement has already swept through the blue base. Jante is essentially out of this game. He's going to need some res subs from his teammates here with that final act of virtuism here, handing out his T2 submarine to his teammates. Now this was certainly costly for the blue player. It'll be difficult for him to rebuild, but if he gets a constructor and a couple of res subs, that is a lot of metal that's lying on the bottom of the ocean floor there. 11,000 metal, more than enough to claw back into a decent economy if his team can cover for him. Meanwhile, Commander goes down here to a couple of destroyers that were dropping depth charges on him, and that is also the southern side collapsing. So interesting, it was not in fact the red player that collapsed in like this. It was actually the southern side that managed to collapse their lane first. That's dangerous. That's very dangerous here for the blue team. Overall, the red team does have more map control here. Holding on to the middle of the map is quite important. Those 2.1s, 2.4 metal extractors pulling in way more metal for the red team than the blue team, and I think that advantage is just too difficult for the blue team to overcome here. Now you can always claw back into one of these games by taking hyper-efficient trades like this, where you can see these herrings are just going into the range of these destroyers here when they actually can outrange them quite effectively. Definitely not the engagement here that Fievel is probably looking for. These dolphins are going to shred all of this to pieces. Just sending in the Riptides to their doom. That surround bonus is just melting these away, and that is going to be tons more metal handed over here to the blue team. Unfortunate to see. I think if you just back off and you continue building your navy, you just continue adding units and you don't throw away that metal, you're going to be in a way better position here. Missile corvettes are pretty terrible anti-air, but they are technically anti-air. Not it's kind of the best you have, but it's not much. Are those dolphins trying to attack that submarine? That's a bit interesting. You see those herrings, they don't do a lot of damage, but they do it from so far away that it's really effective, especially considering the fact that you can run away with them, so you can buy yourself even more time. Eventually, the blue base was eaten up, not a sign of existence here that there was ever a blue player aside from the lone constructor in the back of the map here. Trying to rebuild off of 7 power per second coming out of the constructor itself. Very difficult to rebuild in this situation, but huge props to Jante for sticking in the game. Gets a few tidal generators from his team that's going to be helpful in rebuilding here. Heavy laser tower blasting down some of these ships. That's always very nice. The laser towers are nice because in case somebody goes for hovercraft, which you did see earlier on in the game, they can deal with both hovercraft and ships, but of course it leaves you a little bit more vulnerable to submarines. But with how effective torpedo launchers are, you can just build a couple of those and you're pretty much covered on both fronts here. This northern battle has been intense. We can see that the T2 constructor is now going for some of those advanced torpedo launchers. Those are very, very powerful, extremely powerful defense system. One of the most powerful in the game, I do believe. There's really not a lot that stands up to it. It's almost on par with the epic units, the epic Bulwark, the epic Tachyon. I would be so bold as to claim that anyway, because it really shreds through virtually anything that comes at it. It costs 1,000 metal, so it's it's pretty pricey, but for what you get out of it is a phenomenal static defense. A little bit of payment haggling over here. I pay you, you pay me, sort of a deal going on here, trying to figure out what they should be going for. Looks like Jante has got himself back into the naval facilities here. He's got this lab up and running. Doesn't have any metal extractors anymore. Well, actually has 2 metal extractors. Not a lot, though. Pulling in a solid 4.1 metal per second here. Not on par with his former glory, but still doing what he can when no other options exist. Gonna get a res sub out here. That's quite nice. Would love to see maybe one of these move forward and just start reclaiming rather some of the wreckage here, just to fund the res sub. Because as for right now, there's not a lot of money in the bank here. That's a winning engagement here. I think green could definitely push in. Not going to risk the navy, though. Just instead going to take out a couple of destroyers in exchange for a couple of dolphins. Always a worthwhile trade here. You can see losing 3 dolphins and a corsair for 2 corsairs, 2 Elsa, and a dolphin. Definitely a trade well worth taking. Going to send in the res subs to eat up that metal. Definitely doing a great job here is Silver Hornet, who is making sure to continue growing that economy both through action and through construction here, building some of those tidal generators. A couple of those advanced torpedo launchers are coming up here, and it's not going to take too many to push back on this attack here. Yeah, we really don't even need to posture the destroyers at this point. We can just fall back to the torpedo launchers. They're literally that threatening. They're a phenomenal unit. Buccaneer in a little bit of trouble here. Oh, we do have the T2 Armada expansion pack. Thank goodness. I was going to say, I really hope we do, because they're so much fun to play with. A lot of people are claiming they're imbalanced. I think they're just still getting used to them. I think they're actually very lovely. And I think they add a little bit of depth to the game, no pun intended. The Typhoon here, as I call it. They are not officially named, but I'm pushing very hard for the flamethrower ship to be called the Typhoon and the lightning ship to be called the Maelstrom. It was like, as soon as I saw it, I saw the very first, well, maybe not the first rendition, but I saw an early rendition. The creator who came up with the designer who came up with the 3D graphics sent me a picture, a little video of a demo of them. And immediately, the first words that popped into my head, I mean, it just like clicked instantaneously, was Typhoon and Maelstrom. So that's until they get an official name, that's what I'll be referring to them as. I'm, you know, it's not the first time that I'll just come up with random headcanons for this game, so it's pretty on par for me, actually. Paladins are quite nice. Yeah, the Typhoon here is actually very, very good against Dolphins. It's an excellent screening ship. It's kind of it kind of is effectively your T2 Dolphin, but as goes the age-old adage, more stuff beats less stuff. And in this case, it's going to be Top Secret who has way more stuff here. Pumping out that T2 like it's nobody's business. Getting that beautiful economy based on tons and tons of these tidal generators that loads of T1 are headed right into his main facility to kill. Why is there no reaction to this? We definitely need to see some units headed to deal with this. There we go. Finally, the units are re-rallied. He realizes, wait a minute, something's not right here. And Commander in a little bit of trouble. Paladins do, of course, have those depth charge launchers, but he will be able to cloak and hide himself fairly well. Uh-oh. Yeah, the Dolphins are in the back line here. Skaters as well for the anti-air. It's going to shut down those gunships relatively quickly. Quicker than if you didn't have them anyways. No, nicely done to space out all this economy. Makes it quite a bit harder to kill. It's the reason why this is not as effective as if these were all clustered together. Very, very efficient here. With those skaters down, the torpedo gunship can actually start getting a decent trade here. Those energy converters are going down, which is a little bit of a pain, but he's already got more than he needs. So all said and done, not the end of the world, I would say. Maelstrom's here, sweeping through the northern section and trying to wipe away the green player. And for what it's worth, that is a devastating army. Tons of those lightning ships are out here, and they can really melt through basically anything you throw at them very, very quickly. You can see them tearing down this economy, much more effective at chaining that lightning across multiple targets here and bouncing it between the spaced out economy. They are great for taking out all of those T1 tidal generators here. Silver Hornet calls for a resign as the northern side has been swept away here. Oh, it's close. Are they going to do it? Is this aggression enough to put the blue team under? I don't know if there's going to be any way to recover here, as now the purple teams, or the purple players rather, facilities have been completely disrupted. Takes out the energy converters, takes out all the build power as well. There's basically nothing left for the purple player except for what's under the waves. They're bouncing back from it though, trying to clean it all up. The Dolphins are effectively what the Maelstrom is meant to counter. It is the T2 Dolphin counter here. It's your screener ship. It's meant to shut down that T1 spam. No anti-air included in this mixture. That's a bit unfortunate. Going to take a very decent trade against those lightning boats with the torpedo gunships. Meanwhile, proper T1 Navy is just continuing to push forward here. Destroyers trying to get the best engagement they can, but up close and personal, those Dolphins are going to take a phenomenal fight here, and you can see that plasma artillery raining down on these boats heavily. And they'll decide to stick it out here. Looks like our light blue player, our powder blue player, if you will, has decided to tap out of the game. We'll have to see who takes that eventually. Don Reagan is dealing with a single torpedo gunship in his backline. Very annoying stuff. Yep, pops all of those energy converters there. Gonna get these tidal generators probably. Don't see why he wouldn't. Anti-air tower trying to shut it down here. Not gonna be able to. And the torpedo gunship will be shot down. He was a valiant hero. Oh, okay. Jante doing an excellent job of getting back into this game. Takes over the metal extractors here that were, well, whether they were handed over or whether the person resigned, either way, getting those metal extractors up and running. Very nicely done. Going to be able to step him into a proper T2 economy here. One of the things that I would definitely recommend is going for a couple of these T2 support ships. They are a generator, which is a new class of unit. I don't believe there's any other unit in the game that has that sort of classification, but the generator unit is effectively a energy producer. So it builds anti-nukes, but it also overflows a little bit of energy on top of that. You get about 200 or so energy out of the generator ship. So what you can do is just start mass producing them, and eventually your economy is going to step up in, you know, by it's about 225 energy per ship that you build here, and that's more than enough to fund a couple more of these energy converters. It's an interesting way to get into a T2 economy while also producing effective units. And anti-nuke is quite nice. Now, there's not really a nuclear option in this game, so that's really the only reason you'd go for those generators. If you could find a way to put a nuke on this map, it'd be well, it's beyond me. I don't know how you would do it. Not a whole lot of land-based options here. Yeah, I don't think you're going to fit one there unless you somehow flatten that land a little bit. And in order to do that, the only way I can think of is to nuke it. So, yeah, although the nuclear threat is minimal here, Still very, very potent energy producer. Typhoon's here trying to get a nice little engagement. They have to get a little bit up close and personal in order to do so, though. Eventually they will take a fight, although going up against destroyers isn't exactly what they were meant for. Still, they do a great job, though, and you can see them melting down those heavy T1 ships with relative ease here. Destroyers in the backline, or battleships rather, in the backline here, laying down that long-ranged fire out of their modified Cerberus heads. Doosh, doosh, doosh. They fire that 3-round burst that is oh so killer. Paladins here are going to jump on top of them, though, and again, more beats less. Say it with me, folks, more beats less. The surround bonus is not to be underestimated here, as the Paladins easily shut down some of those heavy hitters, and the laser fire also cutting through any of those light units that are supporting any of this. Very nicely done. That is a massive army here for Top Secret. Wouldn't even mind seeing it split at this point. You could pull half of it up north and put half of it down south. You could even give half of it away, and you'd still probably be in a phenomenal position there. Might be the right play here. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think that might be a good idea here. Just take the top half of your army, hand it over to the blue player, and let him micro it down here so that you can posture your army up north still without really having to do too much. Someone push blue if you can. All his units are south. It's a great observation there from Fievel. That's absolutely true. All the Paladins are displaced at the moment except for a couple of them. So if you could push with a couple of units, you could sneak them through this opportunity path and attack from this angle. That's what's so tricky about Navy, is it's a flat plane, right? So if your army is one place, it's not like they can really get anywhere else aside from at their designated specific set speed. You kind of go with the speed of the tides, and you don't really try and fight that. That's just how you have to go. Now, res subs are excellent here. Going to try and reclaim. Yes, we're going to be reclaiming all of this metal, this juicy, juicy metal, both our own corpses and the corpses of the enemy. But this blue Navy is a massive one. This is an effective 27,000 metal, rather. Almost 300,000 energy. I think we can go. I think we can do enough damage to justify losing this army, because we can just res it on the back here. Yeah, I think we should go. I think Top Secret has the Navy in order to contest both of the players here, both Fievel and otherwise here. I think if these Paladins push in, they're going to do a tremendous amount of damage. Meanwhile, up north, like I said, these Typhoons, or rather these are what are they called? Lampreys, are just so effective. They really are. Nicely done with those Paladins, though, pushing in just like the teammate suggested. Excellent little call out there, by the way, from Fievel. That was really nicely done to point that out here for the future is bleak. Well, not a very optimistic name there. Yep. Top Secret trying to coax his teammate into helping him here. Torpedo gunships are shutting down, for the most part, these Paladins here, but they've done a decent amount of damage, shutting down these tidal generators. But at this point, we're going into a nuclear reactor economy, so I'm sure Top Secret isn't really too chuffed about losing all of those tidal generators. Lighting ships here shutting down that T1 and T2 mixed composition, though, very effectively. You can see the AoE, quote-unquote AoE, right? They chain react their lightning across boats, which is it's sort of like an AoE, not really. It's a chain lightning, which is different, but the same effect, more or less. Very, very powerful, though. And you can see it melting away at this composition here. Commander goes down here. I believe that was going to be the future is Bleak's commander. Yep, he was hanging out on that island, and he did go down here. Interestingly enough, the laser fire is enough to shoot down these gunships very, very slowly. Not very effectively at all, but, you know, better than nothing, for sure. Loads of torpedo launchers over here. Submarines, I mean by that. Very, very powerful ships. Paladins are a decent counter, but not perfect. And it's doing its damnedest to try and shut a lot of this down, but it's having a hard time. Gunships are much, much better equipped for this, as of course those submarines can't fire up into the air. What a bummer that we lost all these Paladins here. I really think if those had pushed in just a minute sooner, he had a very, very sneaky opening there. Could have managed to get all of those Paladins through, and that would have been a really huge play. Instead, just reclaiming a whole lot of the wreckage here. So not really not a net negative, but certainly a little bit less effective than probably he was hoping for. Top Secret, that is. Who is now having a bustling economy, rather. I guess a bristling economy too. 10,000 metal in the bank, though. We need to spend that somehow. At this point, I would love to see some drone carriers included. I would love to see a couple of these support ships built, and maybe even start thinking about a flagship. usually a hazard against the flagship because it's a little bit of a metal dump. But if, for instance, you have a lot of metal you're reclaiming and you need to spend it rather quickly, you have the build power, you might as well go for a capital ship, because at the very least you can apply pressure to things like this, big turtled up fortificated positions there. That's a real word for you. Typhoon's not very effective against submarines, that's for sure. I love the little fuel cells on the side of these, by the way. What a nice little touch to add those Cortex fuel cells. Just beautiful. Really, really, really beautiful. Drone carriers here are actually fairly decent against sort of the screener ships, the Dolphins, the Paladins, all that good stuff. They're just a cheap and fairly inexpensive way to pester those units, and it's definitely a good inclusion into any composition, especially if your navy is doing all right here. Destroyers from Grenvogt actually did manage to sneak around the back here, and they're going to start tearing away at this economy. But again, we're taking out the tidal generators when we've already got 4 fusion reactors up and running under the seas here. Now, of course, the red team doesn't see that. I don't believe that they've scouted for this yet. Yeah, they haven't seen those, so they're looking around for it right now, but they haven't found it. Meanwhile, Top Secret's attention has been pulled away here. That's a lot of gunships. Yeah, we're sending in the gunships, and for what it's worth, going to be able to do a little bit of damage here. Looks like this player is tapped out of the game. Not sure exactly who that was. Was that Don Reagan? Might have been Don Reagan here. We'd love to see one of these players take over this base. No reason why they should sit idle, as well as those metal extractors. You might as well pull those back into your team. Of course, the player overflows whatever they're leaving behind here. But still, you know, might as well be worth taking. You can still rebuild. You can use that commander to build a whole lot of tidal generators. All that good stuff here. Alright, well, the blue team has now lost control of this massive metal field in the center of the map. 26,000 metal left over in that reclaim field. That is massive. That's going to be more than enough to catch up the red team here. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing, is the red team is now dealing with huge counterattacks, pushing in from all sides. Top Secret, who once had a massive navy, fielded around all of those paladins here, put all the metal into fusion reactors, and at the time being, it doesn't look like that's exactly going to pay off here, as a lot of Buccaneers are headed his way. He's going to need to take those down if he wants any chance of survival. Meanwhile, a couple of destroyers here, battleships rather, accompanied by some Buccaneers, so that's quite nice. Those are anti-submarine screeners, so that's very good. Launching those depth charges, going to shut down metal extractors, going to shut down torpedo launchers, going to shut down basically anything under the sea that tries to mess with this composition here. And then, of course, those despots can dish out that long-range hurt. Yeah, Buccaneers are very, very nice, but you have to have plenty of them. Their laser fire can do a lot of damage, but it's a little bit less impressive than other options, like, for instance, the maelstroms, the Typhoons, the Paladin Gauss cannon that it has on top of it. It's 3-headed snozzle cannon. Buccaneers still making it pretty far into this base, though. They're going to get that fusion reactor. That'd be a pretty good target here. Looks like these Typhoons are going to clean it up relatively swiftly. And I don't think there's going to be much to deal with those. However, follow-up wave here, pushing in. Now, these units are very scuffed up, but all they have to do is take down this lab, and that's going to open up a whole lot of opportunities here. Yeah, I think they're going to do it. There's definitely enough of them, especially with the reinforcements coming here. This despot going to be cranking out that long-range plasma firepower, and I think the pink player is in a bit of a critical situation here. Build power comes under fire, and the fusion reactor is going to start taking hits as well. Underwater depth charges are going to start landing on that naval fusion producer. T1 lab goes down as well, and that is the pink player's entire production base taken out of the game. He's going to rely entirely on his teammates to clean up this mess if he wants to come back here. Massive engagement up north here as well. Massive, massive fights. Paladins versus Buccaneers all the way here. And you can see it is a bloody battle to the bitter end. Love to see those Paladins in numbers. They really are quite impressive once you get them up to speed. Also, shutting down the submarines is very powerful. Submarines are quite expensive, 950 metal versus 1,000 metal for the Paladin. So you really don't. I mean, you don't want to lose the Paladins to submarines. That'd be an inefficient trade. But yeah, if you're able to take out your enemy's submarine force, that can be very effective. Especially those Serpents, 1,800 metal. Yeah, very expensive. Those are definitely a siege weapon. You really don't want to lose those. Chauncey calling a resign vote once more, as his base has been swarmed through by some Paladins from Smiles here. Jaunty has a favorite button, and it's not the move or the fight command, it's the resign command. I get it though. Being killed once is no fun. Being killed twice is downright annoying. Being killed thrice, that's just the icing on the cake, I'm sure. It's going to have to get another commander from some other constructor rather, from another commander. Now this is nice. Using one of his he does actually have a constructor here, but it's pretty far into enemy lines. Yeah. Still though, using it to reclaim and send metal back to his team, so that's always nice at the very least. Oh yeah, this commander is just AFK. How unfortunate. Commander might have been able to do something there, although not much probably. Like I said, commanders fall off very quickly as we are already well into that T3 late game here. The hero paladins, but these depth charge, or rather these torpedo launcher gunboats are pretty powerful. Would love to see some anti-air included in here. Proper anti-air, not the skater, light anti-air rocket. A Dragon Slayer or an Arrow Storm. For Armada, I believe it's the Dragon Slayer. Yes, got it right. I pride myself on memorizing random facts, random tidbits of information, relative to essentially nobody. Okay, Despot can outrange the Maelstroms there. That's interesting to know. Always interesting to figure out those counters and compositions here because it's you know, it's a developing field, and I'm sure those T2 units are going to be included officially eventually, and so that's well worthwhile to pay attention to what works and what doesn't, so you're prepared as soon as that patch hits the meta. I see flak here. Don't know where it's coming from. There it is. There's a Dragon Slayer there. Shooting down those gunboats way more efficiently than any of those skaters can. And that is quite nice. We need to see some aggression up north. I think maybe going for a battleship up here, a flagship rather, might be the move, just so you can start tearing down this defense at long range. Probably not a bad idea. Meanwhile, some Krakens are moving down south, slowly but steadily crawling their way across the surface of the Earth here. Well, this probably isn't the Earth, but the surface of this planet anyways. You can see 74, almost 25% to the shot, but they fire extremely slowly. They're designed as a siege weapon, right? You're meant to park these somewhere and fire at long range using a sonar station or something to that effect. First epoch of the game, I do believe, comes out from the future as Bleak starts putting that metal into a long-range artillery cannon. You don't have very many options, especially if you don't have the extra units enabled for sort of long-ranged artillery on the high seas, and so this is definitely one option to do so. Epoch raining down that devastating firepower out of its twin Gauss cannons. What are you called? I'm trying to remember the name of this. The Gorgon, that's right. Gorgon raining down that rapid fire plasma fire as well. I do love that thing. Looks like it's just spitting all over the enemy. Pew, 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 pew. Also, talk about a reclaim field. 54 grand right there. Do love that we have the res subs back here. Hope they're going to start eating up this metal. Yeah, eventually they will. It's part of their reclaim field. But yeah, these Gorgons are downright oppressive. Just the amount of firepower that they put out every second really makes you rethink pushing into those. You're going to need a flagship, and I think by this point, Top Secret, it would be well advised to make some of those. Also start spamming out some skaters, perhaps, to draw fire. Easy to forget that T1 works both ways. T1 spam, that is, works on Navy as well. In fact, in some cases, it's a little more effective because it draws the fire of those epochs very, very nicely. An epoch was produced here, but I think it should be parked up north to break down all this static defense. If we tear down the static defense up here, there's not a whole lot stopping the purple flare from pushing all the way on through and collapsing the entire northern section of this map here. Unfortunately, I don't know if the blue team is aware of that. The blue team's southern side is also completely collapsed. These units need to go, go, go. If orange and brown here start to move their units in, they can easily sweep through the northern or the southern section of the map, start moving into this direction, and that collapses one of the biggest production hubs, and they will easily sweep through the rest of this map. Do they have vision of it? That's probably what they're lacking here is critical vision. Yeah, no radar coverage or anything like that, so they're a little bit timid to push in here. Understandably so. I mean, losing your entire naval force and having to rebuild from nothing, very frustrating. Case in point here, Shantae, who has rebuilt more times than I can count here. Still got a constructor going strong off of 0 metal income. But yeah, this is slowly being the whittling down of the blue team as the force is overwhelmed for the red. Blue had that critical juncture right there in the middle of the game where they had the reclaim field in their possession right around over here, sort of in the middle of the map and all the way around over here. The blue player here, Top Secret, did have all those paladins. Could have pushed in here and swept out the southern side of the map, but just didn't have the intel necessary to make that call, and so unfortunately didn't manage to capitalize on that position. That advantage faded eventually as the red team clawed themselves back into this game. The economies here are looking, frankly, not overwhelming, although Chill definitely has a devastating economy back here. Tons and tons of fusion reactors. That's 6 fusion reactors, very nicely done. More than enough to produce a hail of bullets towards his enemy, but for the time being, the economy for red is just much more dispersed, but still effective. Fighters being produced by Ghost Dragon 5 here, swarming away at the gunships here. They are called the Swarmers. That is the technical name. To swarm one. Yeah, the Swarmers are quite effective. They're a T1.5 sort of a unit. They're more effective than T1 ships. Not that you could build them on this map, but less effective than the T2 fighters. Bit of an interesting position. Now the time has come for the great collapse of the Top Secret Empire. It looks like they will resign as these navies finally hit their front doors. Nothing left to defend themselves, and the blue team has collapsed under the immense weight of the red. Excellently played there. What a phenomenal comeback. Really came back from the brink of defeat there. That was a really, really close match. I really loved to see it, and I hope you did too. Thanks a ton for watching. This has been The Brightworks, and I will see you in the very next video.